Good morning, YouTubers. It's Rabbi Kolakowski here again, and I wanted to make two videos today on two different subjects. So you'll get two videos today, God willing. The first subject I wanted to discuss was that Congresswoman-elect, I guess maybe they say now Congressperson, like they say snow person, made out of snow person flakes, obviously. Alicia, what's her name? Ocasio-Cortez. She said that, she made several comparisons on Twitter and didn't back down from them. She doubled down actually on them, comparing the invaders at the border to refugees from the Holocaust seeking asylum. And Senator Lindsey Graham said, maybe you should take a tour of the Holocaust Museum and see what happened. And I've seen a few people comment back, and see how ridiculous it is to compare these people to the victims of the Holocaust. And that being said, a lot of people, were hearkening back, well, look what happened with there was a ship, the St. Louis, where about 1,000 Jewish refugees came very close to the shores of America, were turned away, and I think all but 5 or 6, I'm not sure, maybe 10 or 12, I don't remember the number, were all murdered in the genocide of the Holocaust. And we can go back and forth with the discussions here, and I saw one, I'll use the, excuse me, I'll use the term loosely, rabbi, say, well, as a rabbi, blah, 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 it's what I don't remember what he said, some left-wing nonsense. I mean, my answer is, well, as a rabbi, you should stick to Mars Nida, and if you even learned that, or Taruvas, or Basa B'cholov, again, if you learn that, and leave political issues to politicians. But as someone with common sense, my answer was, look at the people from the St. Louis. Did they throw rocks when they were turned back? Were they carrying the flag of Germany or Poland or Lithuania or wherever they came from? Were they even carrying the flag of the Zionists? They were sincerely seeking asylum wherever they could get asylum, and they politely accepted their fate. Now these people, they're not going to any gas chambers if they go back to where they came from. Excuse me, they're not in any danger of being killed. And yet here they are, waving the flags of the countries they came from and throwing rocks at American soldiers. There's no comparison here. And the fact of the matter is, and I know a lot of people are going to be offended by this, but why did America see it fit to turn back the refugees from the Holocaust, the few who made it anywhere near America, excuse me? And the answer is that they had no way of knowing. This was wartime. Now, how are they going to know whether or not a Nazi infiltrated into their camps? It's not so simple. So that's pretty much the answer, and the same thing here. I mean, all the media, they're all focusing on this one woman with her 2 kids, but they're ignoring the guys who were throwing rocks, the guys that the Mexican authorities said are criminals. And also just the whole demeanor. These aren't coming humbly as refugees. They're just abusing the refugee status. I mean, I don't believe that God is a respecter of persons. And I don't care if someone is ethnically Jewish or this or that. If the Jewish refugees would have been acting the way that these self-proclaimed refugees coming from Central America are acting, America would have been justified in throwing, gas bombs at them just the same like they're doing here. It's really, there's no excuse for this type of behavior that we are seeing here from these people who are claiming to be seeking asylum, but they are not acting in any way like refugees. They are acting like invaders. And so America has no choice but to react like that. And Dinesh D'Souza said very wisely, he said, why do they call them undocumented immigrants instead of illegal aliens? Because instead of blaming these people for coming illegally and not following the rules and coming here, it's like we're blaming America for not giving them the right papers. And the thing is, America wants to give them. They told them, just get in line and wait, and we'll try to see who's who and who's really a refugee, and try to help you out if you can really prove that you're really a refugee. And instead of getting in line peacefully, the way that they're supposed to do, here they are, throwing rocks and trying to rush the border and attacking our soldiers. I mean, to be honest, they should be shot. They shouldn't have just have gas thrown at them if that's the way that they're going to act. And I'll be 100% honest. And again, I know this is not going to be popular, but that's why we have a lot of the problems we have in Israel. Because when the Haganah and the Irgun, Lehi, these terrorist organizations started attacking the British Mandate in the Holy Land, and what they called at the time British Mandate Palestine. Well, how can you blame the British for not taking in Jewish refugees into Eretz Israel? Meaning these terrorists were responsible for a lot of the problems, and that's why England was like, all right, forget about it, we're leaving. And then what happened? The Arabs started wars, and we've had 70 years of wars of Jews being killed in the Holy Land because of the Zionists. If they would have just said, you know what, I mean, it's well known that the Or Sameach, the Meshech Chochmah, he said that the Balfour Declaration was not a violation of the oaths. He said that the fear of the oaths has left us. Why? Not because how many people interpret it, which is clear from the writings of Meshech Chochmah, he didn't hold like this, that now the oaths are gone because we have permission. If you look in the Maral, there's no such thing as the nations of the world giving us permission to violate the oaths. But rather, because it was not setting up an independent country, but it was still under British rule, that's why it was not a violation of the oaths. But the current situation of the independent state of Israel is obviously a violation of the oaths, which is in the Bible, in the book of Song of Solomon, that God made us promise to wait until the Messiah comes, and that's how the Talmud interprets it. And if not, there would be dire consequences. And simply put, even the concept that was being pushed at the time, we can see the Vayel Moshe brings that's why even before the state was established, but because this concept existed of desiring to violate the oath, which is heretical, it led to all the bloodshed that we saw in the 20th century. I mean, that's both in the political sense and in a spiritual, religious sense. And I know a lot of people get offended by this, but this is Judaism. This is not the politics of the liberal, secular progressives who want to replace Judaism, which is a religion, with some kind of a secular ideology to take Jews away from their faith. This is the Bible, the Talmud, and our classical rabbis. Now, yeah, there are different opinions among the rabbis how to deal with it now that the state exists. Do you vote? Don't you vote? Do you go to Kosel? Don't you go to Kosel? Do you accept money from the government? Don't you accept money from the government? Elu ve'elu devrulikim chayim. These are both valid. You know, you follow your Rebbe as far as how you handle those aspects of it. But everyone agrees, who's mainstream, Torah. I'm not talking about. I mean, even from the modern Orthodox world, there are many who admit that Zionism is the cause of many of our problems. Rav Soloveitchik, Zecher Tzedakah V'Bracha, was a big Talmud Chacham and a great person, even though I know some people feel he was not, but I think, he accomplished great things in his life, and he was a great thinker, even if he had different ideas. But he said in his the Chamesh Drushes, the 5 sermons, that Zionism this is Rabbi Soloveitchik, who is the leader of the religious Zionist movement in America, said that Zionism is the cause of Arab anti-Semitism in our day. That's Rabbi Soloveitchik. Do you have to be a bigger Zionist than Rabbi Soloveitchik? I mean, all he said that was different was he said if it was a religious state, maybe it would be worthwhile, but as a secular state, it's certainly not worthwhile. The difference between his view and the mainstream Haredi view is that even a religious state is not worthwhile. We're supposed to patiently wait till the Messiah comes to have a Jewish state. Doesn't mean Jews can't live in Eretz Yisrael, but the thing is the current situation puts Jews in danger, not only in Eretz Yisrael, but around the world, because it's exacerbating to anti-Semitism. I don't like the term anti-Semitism, but colloquially we'll use that. So, Lindsey Graham is 100% right here. Even to compare this to the St. Louis is totally not appropriate, totally inappropriate, and if there was and the fact of the matter is, America has no obligation to take in refugees. We have an obligation, perhaps, to make sure that refugees get placed somewhere safe and find asylum that they need somewhere, and whether America can provide it or some other country can provide it. But the fact of the matter is, the refugees from the Holocaust, the ones who were able to get out, they went wherever they could go. They wanted to go to Curacao. They weren't able to go to Curacao. They went to China. They went to Japan. First they went to Japan, then they sent them to China, and they were able to be rescued. Some went to Switzerland. It was very difficult to get to these places, different times in history. But it's not America's job necessarily to take in people if we can aid them and maybe help other countries that are able to take in refugees. When we can take in refugees, we should, if we're able to manage it. If we want to work together in the international world. But the thing is, here, Mexico is saying these people are not refugees. So it's not a racist issue against Hispanics, because Mexico is a Hispanic country, and they're saying among these people, maybe you do have some people who are actually refugees. But you have criminals as well, and so that's why they need to get in line and wait, and people can see who's who. And it's their own fault for embedding women and children. It's pretty much what the Palestinians do, using women and children as human shields. And they know, I mean, everyone knows George Soros is funding this. This is openly well known that this whole caravan is being funded by George Soros and by other Sabbatean left-wing satanic forces. And it's a big problem. So and the goal here is not to help these people, but to use them as pawns in undermining American sovereignty. And if these people are really needing help, they could have had asylum in Mexico, and then from the asylum in Mexico, if they wanted to come to America, they could have applied for visas and so forth and come to America legally. That's how these things work. It's not a Hefgewalt. You can't do whatever you want. There are laws for a reason, and it's not to keep people out, but to protect the American citizens. If the people who are coming, who are claiming asylum, can justify these claims, they're more than welcome to come in. But what happens is, this is clearly what's going on here. People, they were taught to just say they're claiming asylum, and then when they get here, they said, okay, you can come in, and then you report to court at this date for your asylum hearing, and then we never hear from them again. So it's the job of the executive branch of government to enforce the laws. And here you have, what are we going to do? Are we going to, when the people come in and they say they're seeking asylum, are we going to, put some kind of tracking device on them to make sure that they show up for court for their asylum hearings? There has to be some way to prevent people from taking advantage of the system. And the fact of the matter is, if there weren't people taking advantage of the system, which was going on in World War II as well, again, how do you know that you don't have a Nazi spy infiltrating a group of Jews seeking asylum in World War II? And they're going to do something and attack people on the home front. It's a dangerous situation. And so America was definitely justified in being cautious there. And the fact of the matter is, what really went on, people don't know the history of what went on with the St. Louis. It's because there were Zionist advisors to FDR who wanted Jews to die, so that after the state was founded, so after the war, the world would give them the state. It's very well established that the Zionist leaders were not concerned with saving Jewish lives, but with founding their state so they could take Jews away from Judaism. And so there were many people, and they would say things like, well, we don't want it to look like it's a Jewish war, and this and that. That's another issue. Because Rav Weissmandl, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, he discovered ways to help rescue Jews during the Holocaust. For $2 million, he could have saved 1 million Jews. And he went and begged the American Jewish organizations. The Orthodox organizations didn't have that type of money. The secular organizations did, and they refused. Because the secular Jewish organizations, they were not concerned about saving Jewish lives. They were concerned about having a case after the war to have their state so they could use it as a tool to grab Jews away from Judaism, which they're still doing today. They're still using the state, the army, and so forth to try to rob Jews of their heritage, of their faith. And that's what this whole thing is really about. And so I wouldn't have been surprised if there were probably many people in America who would have been, including the American government and so forth, who would have been okay with bringing in Jewish refugees if it wasn't for the fact that the secular Jewish organizations and advisors were pressuring them not to do so because of their hatred, their self-hatred. There's hatred, and that's what, Zionism is really built on self-hatred by Jews of Judaism, as a method of removing Jewishness, turning Jews into Israelis and stop being Jews. Not just replacing their culture, but replacing their faith and destroying their faith. So it's a very nihilistic approach, and it's very dangerous. All right. So again, if these people are truly refugees, come stand in line at the border with everybody else and wait in line like you're supposed to, and we got to figure out some way to figure out who's who. We can't just let everybody in, especially when, even if there's one criminal among 1,000. Well, we gotta interview all 1,000 and see who's who. Make investigations and so forth. It's like I said, it's not a Hefkerveld. So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. And it's really detestable how, especially someone who's a part of the Democrat Party, which is the party that inspired the Nazis, could have the chutzpah to compare someone from the party of Lincoln, someone who has a president who has a Jewish daughter, a Jewish son-in-law who are advisors to him, and they are religious Jews. Even if they're pretty liberal, modern Orthodox, they're still religious. They're still Orthodox. They're not the secular, I would say, heretical ex-Jews. And even if they're lenient, and even if they don't keep halacha 100%, as some people claim, which I think is lashon hara, might say shemra, but even if that's true, they are Orthodox, even if they're not 100% orthoprax. And nobody's 100% orthoprax. Me with a beard and payas, I don't do everything 100% right all the time. That's not what it's about. The main thing is the faith. That's why we call it orthodoxy and not orthopraxy, because doctrine is what's central. And these are people who believe that halacha matters. They ask poskim for heterim when they have to do things that they're not sure about. Maybe they get confused or whatever, but at least they care enough to go ask a rav, a posik. How many of these Hollywood Jews ever cross their mind to ask a rabbi? They make fun of rabbis. They make fun of, they make movies and things making fun of rabbis and claiming things that are not even true, So, and specifically taking things out of context just for the sake of humor and comedy and things. So, what are we even talking about here? So, it's just, again, how is it that it's quote-unquote anti-Semitic? And again, I don't like that term. It's really a German term. Really, it's giving into Nazi ideology of racializing Jewish identity when Judaism was a religion and not a race. I don't care what you say. George Soros is a kofar. He's not a Jew. He doesn't count for a minyan. His wine is yayin nesech. He has a din of Yisrael mummer, of a Jewish heretic, not of a full Jew. Now, he doesn't have to convert. He just has to repent, and we could pray that he should repent, and it would be a great thing if he would repent, because he is so destructive. And that's what the Chazal say. That's why the Torah had to be given to the Jewish people, because the Jews without Torah are a destructive force in the world. It says that in the Talmud. And the Torah is the cure for the Jewish problem, because it really is a Jewish problem. And the Jewish problem are people like George Soros, who are destroying the world, And this goes back to Shabtai Tzvi and Jacob Frank and other satanic cults that inspired most of the left-wing movements today that we have today, whether it's communism, socialism, Zionism, reform, all of all the left-wing movements that exist in the world are really rooted in the Sabbatean attack. That's why Rav Yaakov Emden, Zeichet Tzadik V'Kodesh L'Vracha, he warned people how dangerous Shabtai Tzvi was, and he said that really the answer in the world to fix this was Christianity. Not that Jews should convert to Christianity, but that most of the Gentile world should embrace Christian values, and really, in a sense, my feeling is that attacks on Christianity by the left are the real anti-Semitism, the real hatred of Judaism and Jews, because most of the things that the left hates about Christianity are things from our Tanakh, from our Torah, from what Christians call their Old Testament. It's not so much things that are specifically Christian, but things that are part of the shared Judeo-Christian ethic. They're not really generally so interested in Christological issues, although there's one or two issues that they might talk about here and there, but more, and the fact of the matter is that's also rooted, we should be on the side of the Christians in these issues, because attacks on religious freedom are going to affect us as well, and that's going to be really what my next video is about religious freedom and attacks on religious freedom by the left that have been ongoing for about a decade now, maybe a little more. I mean, they've really become pronounced in the past decade. They've existed for a long time. They've existed for 50, 60 years, but now they are really becoming, they've become actualized throughout the Obama administration, and now that they voted back in Cuomo, it's like no holds barred now, and it's really horrible what's going on now in New York State, the attacks on the yeshivas. So we're going to talk about that next in our next video. So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, and comment.